Okay, everyone. Part 3. We're going to get at this, so stay tuned. Okay, everyone, so after I polished up the journals yesterday and got that all squared away, basically this is what I'm going to need right now. So you definitely need to get yourself some plastic gauge, because we're going to check the bearing clearances. Obviously a new set of bearings, some assembly lube, and then there's the cap that I took off there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath the car. I'm going to take everything back apart that I put back together yesterday because of the rain, and we're going to start getting this moving. So let's get underneath the car. Okay, so basically what I'm going to have to do here is slip the top end of the bearing up and over the journal here, so I can get it to mate up with the piston rod. I'm going to bring the piston back down. I'll put these two together, and then we'll put some plastic gauge in there. We'll see what it looks like. We'll go from there. Okay, so basically this is what we have here. So this is the bottom cap. We got the new bearing in place, and cut just a little bit of strip of the plastic gauge. This is what the plastic gauge is. Then what's going to happen is when this rod cap goes and gets torqued down to the rod, that little piece of wax right there is going to spread out. When it spreads out, you use, you can see the gauge there, but I'll give you a little better idea here. But you basically just use this gauge here, and then you could see in your inches to see what your bearing clearances are. You would match this up against it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to torque this down, and then we'll come back. I'll take this cap off, and then we'll look and see what our bearing clearance is. Okay, everyone, so I got that done. There's the plastic gauge, and we are at a 0.003, a little bit more than that. Now the specs for this car are 0.0031 to 0.0045, so we are right in range. So we should be able to put this back together and have no issues whatsoever. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this bearing back in. I'm going to obviously put some assembly lube on there. I'm going to lube up the other side of the bearing too, and we'll put this back together. We'll start cleaning up mating surfaces on the oil pan, get that oil pump back in there, and start putting things back together. And then when everything is back together, we're going to give it a run, and we're going to see how things are. So stay tuned. Well, ladies and gents, this is where I'm leaving it. I got the number 1 done. That was good. Went to number 2. Look at the pitting on that. That journal's screwed. There's no getting that out of there. Look at that shit. Well, it was a valiant effort, but this is definitely not going anywhere here. This engine's toast. Basically, it's going to require a full rebuild. You're going to have to take that crank out. You're going to have to polish those journals, get oversized bearings, or undersized bearings, I should say. This is the number 3. It's not as bad as the number 2, but the number 2 seems to be the most heavily scarred one. So, this sucks. So number 1 was completely loose. That's the one that was making all the noise. Number 2 spun, number 3 spun, and you can't see number 4 because, of course, this is where number 4 would be, but you can't get to it. So you'd basically have to take the whole bottom end of this engine off. Everything here, all these bolts, separate this bottom piece to get to it. But either way, that crank would have to come out. All right, everyone. Well, with that deflating news, I ended up putting it all back together. I already did the rod bearing in cylinder 1. I went ahead and did cylinder 2 and 3 anyway. Obviously, I can't get to cylinder number 4, so I'm 100% certain that that bearing is also spun. But being that I can't get to it, there's really not much that I could do without, tearing down the entire bottom of the engine, and I'm not doing that with the engine in the car. So what I did was, like I said, I put it all back together and filled it up with oil. I pulled the fuse for the fuel pump and I cranked it over a couple times just to get some oil going through the engine. I did put assembly lube on the journals, on the bearings in the journals, so it's definitely not a dry start, but I wanted to get some oil flowing back through the engine again. And then now I put the fuel pump fuse back in there. I cycled it a few times, and I took a look at the high pressure fuel pump just to make sure that there was no leaks. So, with that being said, this is the first time it's starting, and I'm starting it with you guys. So let's see what this thing will do. Definitely running rough. Let's take a listen to this thing. Got to put that bolt back in there. Not really hearing any knocking. In the top end, that noise that you hear up there, that's that high pressure fuel pump. It's really loud. Let's see what it does when I give it a little bit of gas here. The roughness kind of went away. It might have just been because it's been sitting for a couple months. So it's not knocking, but that check engine light's still flashing away. It's not allowing it to rev up either. And that again is part of that recall that they put in there. So the moral of the story is, it's done. Engine's done. I'm not working on it anymore. It needs a full rebuild or replacement. That's what it's all going to be, what it's going to boil down to. So as you saw, those journals are screwed. The bearings are screwed. If that's the case, I hate to even see what the oil pump looks like, because that's also driven off a cam on the inside. And then on top of that, you never even know. I mean, even the main bearings might be screwed too. So everything would have to come apart. Everything would have to be rebuilt. And this engine basically would be a pull out, rebuild, put back in. So valiant effort. I kept saying it pretty much the whole way, but it's done. There's no recovery on that. So this is where I'm going to leave the video, and this is where I'm leaving the Hyundai. All right. So do me a favor, give me a like, comment below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.